Vancouver real estate is finally flooded with inventory, and for the first time in years, buyers actually have options. But with that choice comes danger because it's easier than ever to buy the wrong home. A mistake right now could trap you with a property nobody wants in the future or force you to sell at a massive discount. Today, I'm breaking down 6 types of Vancouver homes you absolutely need to avoid, and number 5 might actually shock you. More importantly, I'll show you how to spot these red flags before you buy and what you can do if you already own one so you don't end up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So as we get into number 1, if you are wanting to live in Vancouver, this is one of the most important items that you need to be aware of. And you can see it here. It is Vancouver peat bog areas, the hidden foundation threat. This is so important to understand that there are peat bogs in and around the city. We're going to go into the map a little bit later, but you can see here, this is a preliminary map from the city of Vancouver. So what you'll see here, what is a peat bog? A peat bog are wetland terrains composed of accumulated and decaying plant material that creates a highly acidic environment. Vancouver has several areas built on former peat bogs, particularly in the east and south regions of the city. Why is it important to understand where these are located? There are multiple hazards for homeowners: ground instability, construction costs, lower property value, and insurance complications. So when it comes to ground instability, the peat bogs causes differential settling, leading to crooked houses, uneven fences, and cracked masonry. These issues worsen over time as the organic material continues to decompose. So I live in the Fraser area. There's some spots around 20th, just off Fraser on the west side, and you'll see these speed bumps, almost natural speed bumps on the road, in the sidewalk. Sidewalks are peeking out like this. Homes are sagging. That is a great indication of the consequences if you buy on a peat bog. Construction costs, it can add $40,000 to $500,000 of building costs due to specialized foundational requirements, including deep pilings that must reach stable soil beneath the bog. So if you buy a property and you're wanting to build and they do some soil testing, they find out that it's too soft to hold the type of property you want to buy, what they'll have to do is drill down these piles down, and they are support columns essentially under your home to get into the bedrock or something stable so that you can build on a firm foundation. Obviously, if you don't do your due diligence and you're wanting to build and this is an issue, this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, it lowers property value. Even after remediation, properties on peat bog land typically have a 10 to 15% lower market value compared to similar homes on stable ground. And in this market where we know it is just so soft right now, these are all question marks that you want to avoid when buying. You have a great availability in the marketplace to buy a home with no question marks. All these items here, these 6 items, are question marks you are wanting to avoid. Insurance complications. Some insurance companies charge higher premiums or limit coverage for foundation related issues known on peat bog areas. So there's an insurance capability of this. And then what is the most common solution? We touched on this before. Helical pile steel foundational supports are the most common remedy, but they represent a significant investment. For existing homes showing signs of settling, costs typically start at $75,000 for basic stability. So this is really, really important that you understand, your agent understands where to find these peat bog maps, where to identify these areas. So we have the map here. And for some typical warning signs, if you're going through a home, what you can do is looking for doors that are sticking, windows that won't open properly. Sometimes I have a marble in my pocket. You can put on a marble on the floor and there's a huge separation in terms of level. The marble will run. In these homes that are located on bogs, you can feel the slope when you're walking, even in a short span. And these are symptoms progress gradually, but can accelerate after heavy rainfalls or seismic activity as well. So like I said, before purchasing, check Vancouver's geological maps to identify, and that is exactly what we're going to do right now. So within the city of Vancouver here, this is the peat bog map. And as we go zoom in here a little bit, you'll see these dark portions across the city here. And you can see that these are peat areas, and they're highlighted here in terms of the Vancouver areas. As you get into that Arbutus, west of Arbutus, Kitsilano area, there's no more peat bogs, but there are several areas here where you need to be very, very much aware. There's a big portion here where it borders right here on Burnaby, and just off of Boundary Road here. There's a bunch of homes, and you can see that they're associated with Charles Park, Rupu Park area. Here's another portion that's in this Pender and Nanaimo area. And then the Trout Lake area, you can sometimes see that obviously around parks, it's softer. This can be a sign of peat bog issues as well. So in that Trout Lake area, John Henry Park, a lot of peat bog. There's not a lot of homes that are affected by it, as most of it's around the lake, but there are some here. But you can even see in portions here just off Knight Street, off Carolina, and this is where the area that I was speaking to, just off Fraser Street. And in this area in particular, right outside Mount St. Joseph Hospital, you'll notice that a lot of these sidewalks, a lot of these homes are slanting. The road is you have to go very slow on the road because you just have all these natural divots just from the cars going on this soft ground. So you need to be very careful. I know sometimes people say that, oh, it's on the edge of the bog, it's not a big issue. You need to be very careful when you're buying, and you need to understand how to find these maps, how to interpret them, because as you can see, this is not just a one-off. There are several little sections here in terms of the peat bogs in and around Vancouver. Number 2 on the list is the ticking time bomb of poly B piping. Obviously, within a home, there's a lot of different construction materials that bring water to your fixtures, such as your toilets and showers. Over the years, there's been a lot of different building materials, from copper piping. Right now, we use mostly PEX piping, maybe Wurzbo. It's a white, clear plastic. But for a while, there was something called poly B piping here. It's this gray piping here, which right now is a complete disaster. It will fail at some point. If you have it in your home, if you haven't experienced pinhole leaks at some point, count yourself lucky, but at some point it will fail. There's been massive class action lawsuits against the company that built this because of the devastation that it provided. So what exactly is poly B piping? Poly B stands for polybutylene. It's a gray plastic pipe used in home plumbing systems from 1978 to 1995. Approximately 30 to 40% of Vancouver homes built during this period contain this problematic material, which was once considered a revolutionary alternative to copper. So how to identify it? The easiest way is the color. It's mainly gray, but it sometimes can be in blue, black, or white. Under sinks, at water meters, in the unfinished basement, you can look in the floor joists to see what kind of piping has been run in there. Check for markings PB 2110 or CSAB 137.8 stamped on pipes. That's an identification number. And you can see in the yellow square here, it's been identified here. So why is it problematic? Leaks without warning. It's prone to microfracturing and catastrophic rupture, especially where chlorinated water flows through the pipes. It has insurance issues. Many Vancouver insurance companies now refuse coverage or charge premiums upwards of 30 to 50% higher for homes with poly B. Replacement costs, 6-figure plus, depending on home size, accessibility of pipes, and whether walls need to be opened up. So the issue with this is the fibers of the piping, and where a lot of the issues happened was in these storehouses with these manufacturers. They stored this poly B outside in the sun, and the UV rays really broke down this pipe, and a lot of the piping that was held outside was degrading it to a point that it was being installed, and it was failing at a very quick rate. And that is why there was a massive class action lawsuits put together. It wasn't just a one-off. They figured out with the science and what was happening and the type of piping, especially with the materials used to clean the water, was degrading it from the inside out. The UV rays, if it was stored outside, from the outside to the inside. So when you have the combination of that, it just was experiencing markers in which it was having leaks and it was showing signs of failure on a mass level, not here just in Vancouver, but Canada and North America as a whole. You can see that here. It's a 78% failure rate percentage of poly B systems that will experience failure within 30 years of installation, according to that class action lawsuit data that I was referencing to. In terms of average replacement costs, it can be well over 6 figures. And the reason for that is a lot of homes that I've seen with poly B, it's in the in-floor heating as well. So this most simplest way to get this out of your home would just be a complete shutdown of the system. Try not to open up the floors, because if you have radiant in-floor heating, the piping is in concrete, so you got to chip all that up. Usually what people do is just shut down the system, try to leave it in the walls, drain it, and then add some heat pump split systems around the house. Obviously that doesn't look nice if you have these big units everywhere, but that would be your cheapest option most likely to remedy the situation. If you still want to have radiant heat floors, you're going to have to chip everything up, get that pipe out, or use electrical panels on top of the floor, but now you're losing out on ceiling height. So it is is a big disaster. As you know, they're running piping all through the walls. So you got to open up everything. You got to take it out. You got to patch everything up. So it is a big cost. I've sold homes with Poly B and it is a struggle. It is a big time struggle. Buyers want to hammer you on it, or they're just so scared of it they don't want to put an offer in at all. So here's a pro tip as we move on to number 3. If you're buying a home built between 1978 and 95, make the presence of Poly B piping a specific inspection point. You should assume that there should be an inspection report that shows that Poly B is likely in there, and you got to make sure that your agent understands this, you understand that, so you can identify it. Sometimes you'll have homes where they've cut out the problematic parts, but there still can be a portion of the Poly B. So just because you open up certain sections and you see some copper piping or PEX piping, if it's built within that year, you got to ask the homeowner if they've had any replacements with Poly B, because even if there's some left somewhere in the home, that needs to be identified. Number 3 on the list is unpermitted renovations and the legal and financial minefield that you're walking into. Again, you have a lot of selection out there in a hot market. There was a lot of times where buyers just wanted to get into a home. They didn't care if the work was done unpermitted, or they got into the home and wanted to save time and money and did work not permitted. And now you're seeing these homes on market. So what is an unpermitted renovation? Construction or renovation work completed without obtaining the necessary permits from the city of Vancouver. These under the table improvements are particularly common in Vancouver's tight housing market, as I stated, where homeowners attempt to maximize living space through unauthorized basement suites, attic conversions, or structural changes. The reason why this is a problem, especially if you buy something, is the following: fines and penalties. It can offer $500 to $10,000 per offense, often double the original permit fee. Vancouver has recently increased enforcement and penalties, particularly for safety-related violations. The city can also place a notice on title that remains until remediation is complete, severely affecting resale potentials. In a scenario such as this, you buy a home, maybe you knew, maybe you did not know, but there's a ton of unpermitted work. In Vancouver, in the heat waves in the summer now, people are wanting to put in more efficient heating systems, such as a heat pump, to get the cooling and bring down their efficiency costs. But with heat pumps, you need a permit from the city of Vancouver. If all of a sudden they find out that you did something without permits previously, they will make you remedy that before they will issue your own permit. So you can inherit an issue from a previous homeowner because you accepted that purchase, and that can be laid on you now. So if you're wanting to put that heat pump in your home, but they did some sort of deck extension without permit, the city of Vancouver may make you remove that deck, build it out to the proper spec before they can issue you that mechanical permit for the heat pumps. It can bring you into a spider's nest by making you involved with previous renovation work, even though you did not do the work itself. Even something like unauthorized basement suite, if you accept it, there can be insurance remedies. If all of a sudden there's a fire or something down below, with the city of Vancouver, with an authorized suite, it's supposed to have fire protection. It's supposed to have all these other parameters to make it a safe living space. And if all of a sudden there's an emergency, it can have insurance problems for you as well. If they start doing their due diligence and finding that work wasn't done properly with permits, didn't get city approval, and it could void insurance. So there's big time consequences with that. In terms of remediation, we talked about that just a little bit ago, but it may require tearing out and doing completed work, often at 2 to 3 times the original cost. This includes opening up walls to inspect wiring, plumbing, removing fixtures, and potentially undoing structural changes. In extreme cases, entire additions may need to be demolished if they violate setback requirements or exceed FSR limitations. Insurance issues. It can void the homeowner's insurance policy, leaving you financially exposed if damages occur in unpermitted areas. Many Vancouver homeowners discover this only after they file a claim. Insurance companies are increasingly conducting their own permit verification before approving policy or claims. Obviously, with all the insurance issues that we have with forest fires, the flooding, even though we're specific here in Vancouver, there's only a couple of home insurers that are funding everything. And with all these natural disasters that are happening more commonly, insurers are not making money, so they are very quick to void any policy. Reduced property value, significant impact on resale value and buyer interest, often reducing offers by 5 to 15%. Financing can also become problematic as lenders may refuse to include unpermitted square footage in appraisals. The liability transfers to you as a new homeowner regardless of who performed the unpermitted work. So you need to be very aware of what you're getting yourself there. How to protect yourself. Before purchasing, request a property information review from the city of Vancouver. It's around $100 to $300 to compare the official record against what's physically present. Pay particular attention to finished basements, additional bathrooms, electrical panels, suite conversions. in the property disclosure statement, or if there's a material latent defect. If there is an unauthorized suite, it's supposed to be disclosed to you. So there has to be some information provided by the seller, but sometimes it's not all disclosed. So it's important to do the due diligence on that front. As we move on to the next point here on building constraints, it's so important to understand the lot that you're buying and the negativity that can be associated with irregular lots or short frontages or the lack of lane. Obviously, these homes that have smaller frontages, that have smaller lot sizes, they're going to be more advantageous on the price point. But in this market where you just have so much selection, you don't need to be jumping into that. That's more so if we're in a hot market and you've been trying to get somewhere, or a life event has happened and you just need some more space. It can be a different story. But in this market right now, you're going to see a lot of homes with small frontages under typical lot size. And because of that, and we're going to talk about this here, it can affect your property value for development and redevelopment in the future. And it does not allow your home to appreciate like a normal property would. So what is FSR limitation? So what is FSR? It's floor space ratio. It determines the maximum allowable floor area of a building relative to the lot size. In Vancouver, most single detached house zones have a FSR of 0.6, meaning a 4,000 square foot lot would permit a maximum building size of 2,400 square feet, including basement areas. So you can see that here, depending on the type of home, even if you're wanting to build, having something smaller will affect the type of home that you can build on there, and that will affect appreciation. Short frontage lot limitations. Limited building footprint, narrow frontage restricts home width and overall floor plan, creating design challenges and potentially awkward interior layouts. No laneway house potential. Lots without lanes or under 33 foot width typically cannot build laneway houses, eliminating a significant rental income opportunity in Vancouver's tight rental market. Reduced development value, limited potential for future expansion on rental income, making these properties less desirable for investors or growing families. Higher construction costs. Building on narrow lots often requires specialized design solutions and can increase construction costs by 15 to 25%. So when we look at the unique zoning challenges here in Vancouver, and we have a little bit of a map so you can have a picture of what FSR looks like. So in Vancouver, zoning bylaws are particularly complex compared to other Canadian cities. While some neighborhoods have standard 33 to 50 foot frontages, many areas, particularly in East Van and parts of Kitsilano, feature 25-foot lots that significantly restrict building options. In 2023, Vancouver updated several zoning bylaws that impact redevelopment potential, particularly for lots under 33 feet wide. Before purchasing, it's essential to understand both current limitations and future redevelopment potential. So you can see that as your FSR continues to increase here on this map, so does the type of property that you can build on. So you are looking for a lot size, you're looking for these floor space ratios, and obviously the bigger the lot, the larger that you're going to be able to build on that property as a whole. And you can see, depending on the floor space ratio and the lot size itself, some types of building schemes are just not possible. So it's really important to understand that, understand your goals, understand the effects in the future if you're ever wanting to develop it yourself, sell it to a developer. But right now you want to be able to get into something that is at least a typical lot size, at least a 33-foot frontage and at least 110-foot depth. Buyer beware. Some other Vancouver homes appear larger than current FSR allowances would permit. If these homes are demolished, the replacement building may need to be significantly smaller, potentially reducing property value too. So sometimes with older homes, it is beneficial to renovate them and not knock them down, because you're going to be able to be grandfathered into that original footprint. They don't include the current setbacks, and that's something that you want to conduct your due diligence as well. So before purchasing, request a zoning assessment from a Vancouver real estate agent or consult with the city planning department to understand the limitations on the property. Moving on to health hazards to avoid here in Vancouver, and that is with asbestos, especially in older homes. If you are looking at buying anything upwards of 1990 here in Vancouver, there's a really strong chance that the property has asbestos. Not only is it a massive health hazard, it's a carcinogen, it can also cost you thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to get it out of your home. So in fact, there's a 75% presence rate of percentage of Vancouver homes built before that 1990 marker that contains some sort of asbestos containing materials. And when we look at the age of homes affected, essentially up to 1990 are most likely containing some form of asbestos. What exactly is asbestos? So asbestos is a naturally occurring group of 6 fibrous minerals that were commonly used in building materials and other products because of their heat and fire resistance, durability, and insulating properties. So they were used in terms of a safety context to protect us by fire, but now that we have a case study and we have time underneath us, we've seen the negative effects of what asbestos does to our bodies, with a few common cancers associated to it. Where is this asbestos located? So these are some easy tips for you when you're looking through homes. Popcard ceilings or textured ceilings, popular from the 1950s to 80s, likely have some sort of asbestos in that material. Vinyl floor tiles and adhesives, particularly the ones that are 9-inch square. Insulation around heating pipes, boilers, and attics. Exterior siding, especially in homes built between the 1940s and 1970s. So it's not exclusive to the interior, it can be the exterior of the home. Drywall joint compound and some plasters, and vermiculite insulation common in Vancouver attics. When it comes to health hazards, asbestos, what it does is a chronic lung scarring, causing shortness of breath and permanent respiratory damage. Mesothelioma, which is a rare and aggressive cancer most exclusively caused by asbestos exposure, and then lung cancer as well, can cause significant risk, especially if you are already a smoker. As of 2024, Vancouver has some of the strictest asbestos regulations in Canada, and Vancouver permits are required to remediate anything. So in terms of hazardous material survey, it is mandatory for pre-1990 buildings before renovation/demolish permits will be issued. Licensed contractors that have asbestos abatement certification need to attend the home in terms of that, because they have a specific training and certification. And WorkSafe BC is also involved, and it requires at least 48 hours before asbestos removal begins. When it comes to that removal cost, the average cost for a comprehensive removal of asbestos is around $25,000, so it's not cheap whatsoever. So an important notice here, and I spoke about it before, asbestos is only dangerous when it is disturbed, releasing those fibers into the air. If you suspect asbestos, never drill or sand or do any type of alteration in those materials, and please get a tester in there to test if asbestos is in the home. It's around $250 to $500, but again, you can see what the cost is to remediate the problem, as well as the risk to your loved ones within the home as well. Finally, we have the legacy pollutant, which is the underground oil tanks were quite common in Vancouver and other parts of Metro Vancouver before natural gas was introduced. It was used to heat homes back in the day, but they had these massive tanks that were mostly buried somewhere underground in the home. When you are looking at homes, it is so important to understand if one has been installed or if it has been removed. If the homeowner has removed it, they should have an official certificate, so you need to understand that. So to be wary of these things, homes built between the 1920s and 60s are most likely to have underground storage tanks. These are particularly common in older Vancouver neighborhoods like Kitsilano, Kerrisdale, Dunbar, and parts of East Vancouver, where homes were originally heated with oil before the natural gas. When it comes to the hazards and risks to be aware of, there are environmental contamination risks, obviously. Leaking tanks can contaminate soil and groundwater, potentially affecting neighboring properties and aquifers. There's a financial liability. Homeowners are responsible for cleanup costs, which can range from $15,000 to more than $250,000 for extensive soil remediation. There's insurance issues involved. Some companies will refuse coverage with underground storage tanks. And then the health hazards as well. Petroleum vapors can enter the homes through basement walls and foundations. There can be sometimes oil that is left in these tanks that is vaporizing into your home. Usually if one was filled back in the day, they would fill it with sand, empty the oil. But if you find an oil tank, even if there's just sand in it, there is a city requirement to remove it. So professional inspections, there are specific companies that will do an oil tank scan for you. If you are living in some of these areas and age of the home and an oil tank scan certificate is not provided, it is very much in your best interest to pay around that $500 mark to get that scan, just to make sure that you have peace of mind. Once you have that certificate from the company, make sure you keep it. You'll need it for the resale of your home because buyers will be asking for it. Mandatory removal. Unused tanks must be removed or safely abandoned according to city regulations. And then the documentation, like I said, the certificate of oil tank removal or abandonment may be required for future property transfers. Sometimes fire departments did keep records of oil tanks, whether they were removed or anything back in the day, but it's really important to understand if you have an oil tank potential in the property. So warning signs, unexplained patches of dead vegetation in the yard, petroleum odors in the basement or yard, fill pipes or vent pipes protruding from the ground, unusual natural depressions in the landscape, records of oil delivery, and property history. So there is a legal note here, which is really important as well, and it comes down to this $250,000 plus remediation. BC's Environmental Management Act makes current property owners liable for contamination even if it occurred under previous ownership. This means you could be responsible for cleanup costs even if you didn't know about the tank when purchasing. So if you had a leaching tank and it went down to a couple neighbors down below and they found that out, you will be responsible for cleaning that up. All that soil needs to be disposed of and new soil needs to be brought in, and it can be very, very expensive. So it's so important to understand if you are buying a property in these areas, in these date ranges, and to get that underground storage tank scan. So that's what I have for you today. If you're wanting this presentation, please reach out to me. I can send it. I can also send you this essential due diligence steps before purchasing, these 6 steps that are very handy to have a checklist while you go through your property, as well as a home inspection checklist that I can provide you. And then finally, if you want a further information when it comes to protecting your Vancouver investment, make sure you book that discovery call with me. It's in the description below. You can scan the QR code in the banner and we can go to all these items about how we can protect your Vancouver investment and make sure that you are buying something that's going to appreciate and it's going to serve your family very well for the years to come. In any case, until the next one, take care.